Hi everyone, welcome back to another For Those Who Code video. This channel is where we discuss and learn new skills around the topic of design and development. If you want to grow your skills and learn new things that's coming up, please like, share, and please do subscribe for more. In this video, we'll be discussing the optional chaining operator in JavaScript, which is not a recent feature introduced, but it was introduced in ES 2020, ES11, around the year of 2020. So before we begin, if you have faced this particular error of cannot read property of undefined, then this feature of JavaScript comes handy for you. Here we can see the definition of optional chaining taken from MDN, Mozilla Developer Network, which says optional chaining operator enables you to read the value of a property located deep within a chain of connected objects, without having to check that particular each reference in the chain is valid or not. An easier way to handle unexpected JavaScript errors when we try to access deeply nested objects is by using the optional chaining operator. So let's see this in action. So let's bring in our VS Code here, and inside our VS Code I have already spent Coca, which is extension. You can find it inside of our extension tab here, which would be Coca, and to activate it you can just hit Shift Command P or Shift Control P for Windows, and which just helps us to execute JavaScript as we type along. So to get hands-on to optional chaining, let's create a constant first, and I would like to call it server response, just because let's act this as a server response that we get from the server. So let's console log our server response, and let's console log server response dot experience dot eligibility, which should be true, which is fine. As we can see here, we are acting this as a server response. What if we don't get this experience property as a server response? Then we can see here our code breaks whenever we try to access server response dot experience, because it's not there inside of server response. So how can we get along with this problem scenario without the use of optional chaining? So let's see that in action. Let's create a constant and let's check eligibility would be a name of this particular constant, and that would be a fat arrow function. And inside here we can add an if statement, and inside this if statement we can check whether our server response is not equal to null and server response is not equal to undefined, and server response does has experience property, and server response dot experience dot eligibility, which needs to be true. Then we execute this piece of code, which just we can just add a console log for now, and you are eligible. And let's also add an else statement, which should be just console log you are not eligible. Okay, so our console log is not working. Yeah, because we haven't invoked this particular function yet. All right, now this would be the case where if you want to check whether the server response is not null or undefined or has an experience property, or experience property dot eligibility is true. What if we want to make the use of optional chaining and reduce this particular piece of code and make it more cleaner? So this is where optional chaining operator comes in. So we can just write server response dot experience dot eligibility is true. Then we can see here our eligibility is undefined. So to face this kind of problem that we see here, we can just add a question mark in front of the property name that we don't think that exists inside of our response. Then as you can see here, by adding two question marks here in front of the property names, which should be experience and eligibility, then we can see here our code works perfectly fine. So this is how we can use optional chaining to check whether our property name exists or not, and also add some logic so we can execute any piece of code as per our requirement. Okay, one thing to be noted down is optional chaining only works at nested objects, not top level object properties. So in many practical cases, we prefer to get undefined instead of an error, right? So this is a pretty much great approach. So we can use right away inside of our code. All right, now let's take a look at optional chaining while working with arrays. And let's create a constant. For now, I'll just call it coders. Inside coder response, we have coder array, and inside that array we have objects. So they are pretty much the name, status, and experience, and years and eligibility, and all those things. All right, what if we want to access the coder's experience and eligibility? So that can be just done with coder response dot coders dot experience eligibility, which would be a return true because we are just taking the geo index of it. And this can also be written something similar like adding a question mark in front of the geo right here and add a dot, which would be pretty much similar that we can see here. So this is how we can add further logic if this particular eligibility and experience, and this is how we can furthermore add logic, like if it has contained if it the array contains the elements, then we can add further logic to this. Okay, so let's take another look into another thing, which is using optional chaining when attempting to call a method which does not exist. All right, for this one, let's also grab in an object that I created, which should be this one, and let's call this coder response. And it has a coder array like before, but we also have additional methods inside it, like check language and unqualified function. All right, so now let's see this in action. Let's try to output the check language first. And as we can see here, it successfully prints out this console log statement, which says the language you know is JavaScript. Okay, so what if we want to check method exists in the object if you try to run it? Okay, for that one, we could obviously use optional chaining with the help of the ternary operators. And let's comment this one out. And let's see this, that it prints out this one. What if this doesn't exist? And then if we comment that one out, then this particular method will be called. So which just checks whether it has a method called check language. If it does have, then it executes check language. If it doesn't have it, then it executes another method which is unqualified language. All right, so this is how we can use a check method exists in our object, and we try to run it conditionally. All right, let's see another thing in action. And for now, this time, let's see optional chaining with callbacks. And here we have our piece of code. We just initialize an empty array of coders. And here we created a function of coder hub, and which takes in name as a parameter, and callback as a parameter as well. And we are checking if this particular function later on invoked has a callback, then execute callback with a parameter name, and return if it's not. Okay, and later here we added another, we created another function of add a coder, which takes in name, and it just pushes the name to the coders array we created here, and console logs the name. And later on, we just invoked this particular function that we created and passed in Alfred, which is name, and a callback function to it, which is add coder. And as we can see here, our Alfred has been console logged to our screen, which is great. And we can also further add another, like let's add Benny, which is the name of my dog. We can see here our name. We can see two names here, and if we just add coders, we should see Alfred and Benny right here. So which is pretty much great. So what if we want to use optional chaining right in here in this if statement? So this can be done with the help of optional chaining. So this could be something like, let's remove this one and add a callback and add a question mark and dot and add a name as a parameter, and we just have it ready. So it just checks whether the callback or not, and if it has a callback, then it invokes that callback with a name parameter. So this is how you can use optional chaining with callbacks. Alright, in this video we learned something about the useful operator we could use today, which is optional chaining inside of your JavaScript code base. So if you guys want to learn more about the topics of design and development, please like, share, and please do subscribe with a click down below. Thanks a lot guys. See you in the next one.